hours, but it was it was fun. Just got back here in time.
Well, I ate. That's what I
There you go.
I ate some unhealthy food while you were exercising. That's the difference between us, I guess.
Well, my friends I have some friends in town. They're actually staying with other friends, and they got a late start this morning, so I skied a little bit, but I told my ski with them today a little bit. And we're skiing tomorrow too, so it's not that bad. Okay, so you saw the flyer, so I'm just updating it right now.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Chris. So Bettina, you'll introduce the speaker today?
Oh no, I thought Sean was, because I don't know her.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was thinking you knew her, but yeah. You're right.
Yeah, what is Sean's last name? I just blanked out.
Sean's last name is Robinson.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, guys.
Hi, how you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Yeah.
Good.
Went to an art installation last night, completely unrelated to AI or anything, but it was Eugene Tapahe's soils project. He's collected all these like 96 different soil samples from around the US and Canada, and talks about, he's Navajo, so he talks about the indigenous people in each of those areas where the soil came from. It was pretty cool.
That sounds awful to me.
That sounds really interesting, I think.
Well, I only heard the last of it. Just collecting a bunch of soil. That's just, yeah. Although
fun.
it wouldn't take up too much space, a little vial.
It's a few hundred pounds of soil.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean, did you already reply to Bettina about changing the time next week to 3?
No.
She sent you an email on that. We were thinking about.
We have a Utah Tech Week in that room that ends at 1:30, so that actually would be better. But we were going to potentially. We got to be a little careful, but we're actually providing lunch there for Utah Tech Week for another whole thing on some of our AI discovery session kind of stuff, our AI solution map that we're doing as well. And so we were going to potentially make it more of a day for the group as well, instead of, where people could show up at lunch, but it may not be the right approach anyway. So anyway, yeah, we can move to 3, but if anyone wants to come to our Utah Tech Week thing for that, then we also could just reach out to me and we'll talk about that as well.
Okay, that's great. I think Bettina was thinking, because we have adult beverages, might be later to start a little bit later.
It's fine with me either way.
Yeah, because I figure people are, before they really end the day, because here they might go back and work a little bit and then.
No, I have no problem with 3 o'clock next week.
Okay, so I'm sending up the
It'll be
final
better
draft.
if we're going to separate it more. It's easier to separate it with that extra half an hour and a half instead of a half an hour between the two.
And I'll come early and help you set up.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, we're at the top of the hour, just a minute past. So we got a lot to get to today. So let's get started. Everyone, appreciate you joining today. Leslie, thank you for joining. We'll let Sean introduce you in a minute here, but by way of a couple of announcements, next week we have an AI SIG activity, which every time there is a 5th week in the month, we'll have an activity. So we'll do this 2 or 3 times a year, once a quarter maybe, where we get together and we network in person. Sean and Bettina are putting this together. look for the invite. It will be at Sean's work location there in Lehigh. The invite will be coming out to everyone in the SIG sometime either today or first of next week. But put it on your calendar, Friday afternoon next week, in-person meeting. If you can make it, it'd be great to meet you in person, and we can talk AI and have some snacks and adult beverages if you so want to partake. But today being the fourth week, every second, fourth week, we have a speaker. We have a really good one on tap today. We won't delay it so we can get started there. Sean, would you like to introduce Leslie?
Yeah, you know, it's been really interesting. I've known Leslie now for, I think, about a year. And she was early on in this endeavor at the beginning, as you can imagine, having as you'll see, something that at first glance looks a lot like ChatGPT. But once you look under the hood, you realize, and you'll see right away why federal agencies as well as commercial agencies would be really interested in gaining the added functionality that's provided with this tool. So much that you can do with it, and so I thought it would be really interesting to have her speak to the group, and she graciously agreed, and so with that, I think there's a few real use cases for us. Is any company that's afraid of just the data stuff with ChatGPT, afraid of the Big Brother syndrome, or just they really want to know how their developers are actually, or their people are actually using the tool, and how many there are actually active. All of those types of questions are immediately answerable with the system that she's provided, and it's just really interesting. So with that, I won't say any more because I'll just mess it up, and then she'll like, well, he already said it. So Leslie, thank you so much for being here. Now it's the weekend for her now. It's already 4 o'clock on the East Coast.
The day's not quite over yet, but well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm pleased to be here. So by way of introduction, I am a co-founder of Pixel Rain, and with me here also is Chris Durham, also a co-founder and chief innovation officer at Pixel Rain. So just briefly, if I could ask this question, how did you all form? What is the founding of this SIG?
Well, Leslie, we are part of a greater IT organization called AIM in Utah. It's a group of about 350 people. They're all in IT, mostly along the Wasatch Front, Salt Lake City, Provo, Ogden area. Of that 350, about 125 of us are CIOs of companies along the Wasatch Front. CIOs, we meet about quarterly for a CIO roundtable, sometimes a little more often than that. And this greater group meets about monthly for a meeting in person. And then it's just over a year ago, we decided to create a special interest group for AI. And we have been meeting weekly for almost a year and a half on AI topics and technologies, trying to figure out the hype from what's real, what's not, what works, what doesn't. And then we try to disseminate that information out to the greater group. And that's our purpose.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that introduction. So, Chris, can I ask you to pull up the Pixel Rain presentation?
Yep. Let me share my screen.
Wonderful. I'm gonna take you through a presentation, and then we're gonna show you a demo. And if anybody has questions along the way, please don't hesitate to ask. So next page, Pixel Rain is a software startup company. We started a little over a year ago, and we're focused on creating Gen AI solutions. Today, specifically, we're going to talk about our flagship product, PXR platform. PXR is designed to enable the deployment of Gen AI capabilities in a secure and controlled manner, and provide the ongoing monitoring and control over those AI capabilities that are available within an organization. So that's the governance component. Now I'm going to do a little aside here and talk about Gartner. They just released recently a report on the top 10 technology trends for 2025, at least as they saw it. And they define AI governance platforms as one of those top 10. And specifically, they define AI governance as assuring responsible and transparent use of AI within an organization. I believe this is, and it's a new product category. I believe this is really a broad recognition that the true power of AI, Gen AI, is as part of an organization's workflows. And that might be purchase to pay processes, or logistics management, or employee onboarding, or a host of other business processes. Making Gen AI part of a process can happen through agentic workflows, AI agents, or even bots. But organizations, if they're not already, will experience a burgeoning number of these intelligent automation and AI tools and agents. It's just the direction everything is going in, and there's going to be demand for that in order to stay competitive. So within that context, an organization, be it a company or a government agency, needs to manage what employees can access which tools, with what LLMs, and what organization data. And that's the enablement piece. And then they need to monitor usage to answer questions like, is this particular tool or LLM effective? Does Group A employees need a modification to a tool because even though they're doing a similar role, it's a little bit different function? Does Group C need training because they don't seem to know how to interact effectively with the tools? Would a locally deployed LLM be more cost effective than a cloud-based model? Or is anyone in the company looking for corporate information that really isn't relevant to their role? This is all part of the governance piece. So next slide, we'll take a look at a picture of all this. Today, without PixelRain, employees may access LLMs through non-data protected personal accounts. For example, they'll go to ChatGPT on a personal account, and that can expose the release of an organization's confidential information to the internet and to training. This is a growing problem. You've probably heard about it, referred to as shadow AI. With PixelRain, the platform sits between the workforce and these third-party LLMs, as well as between the organization's digital assets and the various AI tools and agents that the employees can access. And when we talk about LLMs, it could be third party, maybe cloud hosted LLMs, or locally deployed LLMs, or in the future, we're going to hear more about edge device LLMs. So PixelRain manages AI usage across the entire organization by managing access to these four components: employee data, LLMs, and AI agents. Next slide.
Leslie, I had a question if it's okay.
Yeah.
forgive me if it's not, if I've missed the point here, but the edge deployed LLMs and fine-tuned models, how does the Pixel Rain platform sort of, you know, enforce governance and things like that over that? Like, how can you monitor what employees are asking or using in that edge LLM? I don't know if that made sense, but hopefully.
Yeah. Chris, you want to get into more details, technical details for me?
Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on if the edge device has access to the network, right? I mean, in a lot of DoD context, we're talking about edge devices that are either essentially air gapped or low bandwidth. So that's kind of a separate topic, where essentially we would be waiting for the device to come back online to sync up with the platform. But I think what you're talking about is more corporate setting, maybe private sector, where we have our workstations running on a network. So we would basically be doing logging and syncing with the server-based sort of mothership platform, if you will. Does that make sense?
I think so. Are you saying you kind of close the loop in that IT monitoring and support section? You're observing logs that are occurring, and that's how you'd kind of identify a pattern from there?
Right, exactly. So it could be through a PXR client. We don't have one right now, or it could just be managing logs through, because right now it's a web interface. So if that local user was through the web interface, we could point to a local model running on like the workstation itself, and we would be connected to the internet, or at least our network, and we would update our logs the exact same way we would if the platform is talking to a network hosted LLM, or we're going out to OpenAI through the APIs or something like that. So to us, it's almost the same. The only time it gets a little bit strange is when we're dealing with like a DoD situation, which isn't necessarily only DoD. You could think of like healthcare, where we've got patient care out in the field, and internet might not be reliable. So we might be recording on the edge device, and when they get back to the office, we sync up with the platform.
Okay, I think I understand. Cool, thanks.
Okay, great. Appreciate the question. Next slide. So, a lot of companies are holding back on deployment, and there definitely are challenges. We talked about security as one, shadow AI. And if an organization lets their employees access external LLMs, how are they controlling for that data leakage? If they provide a data protected enterprise account, still, how do they understand what data is being accessed in the company and by whom, and is it following company policy? And if the employee is just accessing information pulled from the internet, how useful is it? They probably would really rather be able to access the company's own data repositories to reference information. And finally, not all LLMs behave the same way. Some are better at certain tasks. So how does the company provide access to multiple LLMs? A lot of challenges. Next slide. And to try and address pieces of this, there is a growing number of solutions that either address challenges on a specific piece of the puzzle, or they're doing some sort of walled garden-like solution in which the organization has to operate within that product's overall environment, and they become limited to typically a specific LLM. So companies are confronted as a result with two issues. How do they integrate piecemeal solutions into the organization's ecosystem? And how easy is it to swap out a given product when a new one comes along that offers a better set of capabilities? Problem with being in a walled garden. Next slide. So let's look at how Pixel Rain addresses these issues. There are really three primary pillars to Pixel Rain. One is that security piece, including access management, which leverages the organization's current access management tools, as well as logging and activity tracking. And then an orchestration pillar that includes the features to manage an employee's interaction with the company's digital assets, as well as agents that direct the user's prompts to the appropriate LLM, data store, or AI tool. And an infrastructure pillar, including the ability to deploy on-prem, in the cloud, access multiple LLMs, integrate with various AI tools, including third-party tools that can be swapped in and out of the platform by controlling access to those at the user level. So it is this combination of features that enable organizations to safely and reliably deploy to the workforce Gen AI capabilities, and then provide ongoing governance over that usage. Again, with the open architecture of Pixel Rain, they can swap in and out third-party tools to support whatever they need supported in the specific organization without having to be locked into an overall environment. Next page. So we're going to demo Pixel Rain, but here's a quick look at some of those features just to orient you. Starting in the lower right, users have a single point of entry. That could be a web page or embedded in Teams or a company portal, where is the easiest access point. Pixel Rain orchestrates access to agents and tools based on the individual's authorized access. And then it's really those agents and tools that in turn manage access to the LLMs and associated data repositories or vectorized data. Management has access to insights through a dashboard to be able to understand usage, and this can be configured at a work group or a higher level organization level. And finally, logs provide detailed insights into specific user interactions. So next slide. Pixel Rain also offers some tools out of the box that support specific business needs, including being able to access the organization's knowledge, which is reflected in both structured and unstructured data in the company's corporate repositories, or even individual data repositories that are controlled at the individual's level. So again, access can be configured at the work group or enterprise level. So for example, you may give all employees access to company policies or HR handbooks or benefits information, but only IT employees get access to system configuration guides, and only finance employees have access to selected finance data. But the tool allows rapid search of those repositories, whichever are allowed at the individual level, to query and find information. And so supports knowledge retention in the organization. We also have tools to support document generation and code generation. We're still working on the code generation, but you'll hear more about that as Chris demos. Next slide. So bottom line, it's really that Pixel Rain provides organizations with the capability that they need to effectively deploy Gen AI to their workforce, and then understand the employees' usage of those provided AI tools and agents, whether that's Pixel Rain provided tools or third-party tools and agents, as well as to the organization data and LLMs. And then insights provided by the platform help companies optimize their AI ecosystem, as well as understand employee training needed so that they can effectively use those AI capabilities. With PixelRain, companies can really harness Gen AI effectively and responsibly in line with policy and leverage that productivity that Gen AI offers. So, Chris, let's turn to the demo. Any questions while he brings that up? I guess I was clear.
No, bedazzle us now.
All right, so yeah, I mean, we're in the chat interface now with this is through the browser, but like Leslie mentioned, I mean, it's all API based, so we can integrate this with Microsoft Teams or really wherever that given team or user is sort of used to interfacing, if that's in ServiceNow or whatever it is. I'm just going to ask a fun question, and fun is relative, I guess, in this context. But the government has come out with some AI directives. So I'm going to ask what the NIST 100 directive is, and I'm actually talking to the agent itself. So sneak peek, I have the tool, the RAG-based tool, turned off right now. So I'm getting an answer from the agent saying it does not appear to be a specific security or privacy standard. NIST is known for publishing, so this seems like a very valid answer. Most of us would refer to this as potentially a hallucination where there is a NIST 100 standard. So in this case, our agent is GPT-4o. We're using the OpenAI API, so a data protected version, but this is a third-party hosted model where our data is being shared. There's no reason we couldn't use an open source model local on our network to act as our agent. And in fact, that's a big part of what we like to do with the platform. But I'm going to go over, and this is sort of an admin view. I'm going into my own rights, and I'm going to turn on a tool called NIST AI Directives, where we've embedded a whole bunch of mandates around AI coming out of NIST and the executive branch. And I'm going to go back to chat, and I'm going to ask the same question. And so what this is doing is running a similarity search against our vector store and passing that information, again, to this case, GPT-4o, but we could use any model and saying, hey, can you answer the user's question based on the results, the similarity search results from our vector store. So we can see what tool fires. The tool is called NIST AI Directives. That's the tool I just turned on. And now we get an answer that is correct. And it's actually the NIST AI 100-1. It's the basically AI risk management framework. This tool specifically also provides the user with where that information came from. Probably most folks on here, this is an AI group, RAG, we can search across multiple sources of information. So what gets fun is where the full answer to the question is actually based in two different documents. So you have to pull back multiple chunks. So here we asked what the difference between the NIST 100 and 600 directives. Again, our NIST AI directives tool ran. It's telling us what the NIST 100 is. And then it's defining the NIST 600, and then it's basically explaining that the NIST 100 is a general AI risk management framework that addresses all kinds of stuff around AI risks, while the NIST 600 is specifically focused around generative AI. Again, it's going to source where that information came from. So that's great. So we talk to teams who have, help desk groups or HR, pick any team. We all have knowledge sources. But let's say we all formed a company on the phone here. It's probably pretty unlikely that all of us would have access to all of our company's data. Instead, we would build specific tools, RAG-based solutions to segregated vector stores where we each can only access the information we're supposed to. And this tool, the platform and the agents running on the platform can help direct us to what information we need using the models we're supposed to based on the tools we've been assigned. So I'm going to keep kind of cranking through but interrupt if we have questions. I have a couple more things to show and then we can pause. I guess I want to highlight the fact that when we talk about Gen AI tools running, this isn't just for users. We can run specific tools in between the user and the tool running like we just showed. So we can essentially stack tools in series or in parallel. But also we can have tools running autonomously in the background for data flows. Maybe we're importing external data onto our network and we're running some checks and balances. We're syncing data between two systems. We just had a question earlier about edge devices and syncing back to the platform. Do we bring everything? Do we check for certain information, maybe personal use on that device, and block that from going onto our company network? So here, I'm just going to give an example of a tool we built for one of our customers, basically evaluating different open source models. These are mid-size models, so on the smaller end, small mid, to figure out if we're looking for PII, and we have a separate one doing rate information, which model or models we're going to deploy to be able to figure out different things. So for them, we're looking at one of Google's open source, Gemma, not to be confused with Gemini, and then Meta, one of their Llama models, and Mistral's Mixtral model. So, again, we asked for the output in JSON for these because they're going to be hooked up to automations kind of occurring and running on their own behind the scenes. But you can see how if we change this so everybody identified there is PII and there's an address. But if I shift this input a little bit to maybe we're looking at a different piece of information where Chris works at Pixel Rain, who's headquartered at this address, and we check PII again, we can see now all of these models are saying that they're not detecting any PII. So we deploy tools like this not only for almost production use, but also to assist customers in understanding how these different models perform, to kind of almost inform strategy on, okay, we know we want an open source model. We know we want to keep some things within our network. How do we figure out which model is best for us and what prompt is going to work for what use cases? This obviously all goes into the beautiful logs of figuring out who's doing what tools are firing, or if no tool is firing and just the agent is running, what the output is, so we can go back in time. There's security purposes here, but Leslie also mentioned when she was looking at the dashboard here, imagine we can look at, team A versus B. Sean, you had an excellent example with, I think it was the product team, the project manager team, and the dev team. It was like a Goldilocks scenario. The dev team was super excited. I think they just had ChatGPT Teams account. And the PM team was like, nah, this is okay. And the product team hated it. Well, that's good to get the feedback from the teams, but now imagine we can look at the usage across those three teams, and then we can go in and look at how the different teams are prompting. So in our future scenario where the teams are using actual tools, they might have access to ChatGPT, but if we give them a tool, we can almost reduce the learning curve by forcing requests to go into a certain prompt template or something. So improving the reliability of the responses, reducing the training needing for the end users, or we just need to give them training. But again, kind of doing some in-depth analysis under the hood of the interactions beyond just talking to those teams. So just kind of a footnote on an important concept there. But I'll slow down and pause. I have one more thing to show, but Leslie always says, and everybody, I forget to pause. So we'll do a pause. How are we doing?
Well,
This-
I think you just crossed the threshold of going, oh, wait, this is different than other systems out there, right? So you can, this type of granularity of how users are using the different systems typically isn't available. So that's
Right.
something that is important. And then you mentioned RAG systems. You mentioned, you know, files that you're putting up for different things. You mentioned different backends. How versatile is the system?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, we can deploy on Linux or Windows servers, and everything behind the scenes is microservices. So we can, the only kind of quirky thing is when we go to a air gap deployment, we have to change the tech stack a little bit. Normally this wouldn't be an answer, but I think this is a technical group, and use something called llama CPP to basically retrofit our agentic workflow to be able to work offline, and you can basically use OpenAI function calling without OpenAI models using something called llama CPP. Other than that little nuance between a regular deployment where we can get to a gov cloud or to a cloud, and an air gap or offline or edge deployed, essentially we can connect to anything. For frameworks, we do llama index, LangChain, and we love OpenAI function calling. For tools, some of these tools are just built into Python. Other ones I have built in a low-code tool called Vector Shift, but you could use Relevance AI. We could build, some of our tools don't even use Gen AI. They're actually hooked up to RPA bots. So you can essentially run like a script to perform some activity. So it's simply the platform. We have descriptions of what the tools are. So this is a get weather. This is sort of like the hello world of Gen AI. I think everybody knows that. You know, use this this tool to get the weather. Let's pick a more normal one, like the thing. So through the description and the name, the agent can figure out, based on what the user is trying to do, if I should initiate this this tool, and that's just calling an API. So that's how we get the flexibility of this API could be anything. You know, it could send an email, it could talk to ChatGPT, so on and so forth.
So pretty versatile.
Yep.
Yep. Very long answer to, yeah, it's very versatile. Yeah, our two kind of claims to fame is it's flexible, so you don't get stuck in a walled garden. Because you'll see some of these features coming out with like OpenAI and stuff, but the minute you want to use Gemini, or God forbid a locally deployed model, that's outside of the purview of some of the features that we're seeing here. So that's kind of that's almost where we came from in designing the platform, was flexibility. It wasn't like an afterthought of, wouldn't this be cool?
So give me an idea of what it would take to just, what's the normal workflow, or how hard is it to do like your first RAG based model on your system?
Well, it depends, because I don't know how familiar everybody is with RAG, but like there's questions to ask for the use case of like, we have to figure out what the best chunk size is and how many chunks we need to return for each query. So let's just go through a scenario. I would suggest we use a low-code solution, almost like Vector Shift, where we can work with the customer, with the group, to kind of define what we're querying and how that's going to work and stuff like that. And then once we know what the chunk size needs to be, that the responses are going well, we also need to look at your tech stack to figure out what vector store we're using. We use Microsoft Cosmos a lot. Elastic is fine, but it like triples the size of your data. So it's almost like with RAG solutions, there's as many nuances as there are with what LLM should we use and what's the pros and cons. And that whole side of the discussion doesn't get talked about a lot. To answer simply, like if we met with you, understood what data set you wanted to get in, we would have a RAG solution up and running for you within a couple days. We'd obviously need to talk about what embedding model and things, and then we might need to iterate from there to kind of tweak chunk size, amount of results, that kind of thing.
Thank you. That's a, all right. Now, sorry I took over. Anyone else have any questions?
I just think this is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really cool. Do you mind telling me about the different ways that you can give permissions to users on what data they can see, or limit what data they can see or query from?
Yeah, so right now it's all tool based. So let's pretend we had 3 data sets, and like everybody on the phone here could access one or more of those data sets based on their individual rights. Obviously, we could take this to the team level. We integrate with whatever credentialing system we're using. InterImage uses Microsoft Active Directory. Most of our customer uses it. Most DoD uses it. But if someone is using Okta or something like that, we would integrate there. So that's where we're setting the group or the individual user rights. And then this is going to it to ask. So like if I log out, I just sign in. I have to use my Microsoft Authenticator for but you can watch beside it. It's amazing to get in. So here we go. So this is all run by Microsoft, and that's where that's being set. Our platform is then assigning certain Gen AI tools. I better sign in before I time out. To that Microsoft Active Directory account. So I'm going to say, does that make sense after every single question? But basically, we're just using the credentialing system that's already there. Another example of flexibility. And then we just map whatever tools that person should access to that account in Active Directory.
Yeah, I think I follow. Thanks.
So, Chris, you should demo WordPad.
Okay. Well, I'll get booted out of here. Okay. So, WorkPad, and I don't know, if we'll do raise of virtual hands or something, but did anybody use on ChatGPT with Canvas?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they kind of went away. They did an announcement yesterday, and it's come back. But we wanted Canvas RAG enabled, right? So we can hook it up to all of our data. And we wanted to be able to deploy it and use local models and things like that. But we, the credit goes to OpenAI, because the minute I saw Canvas, I was like, wow, this is the future of how we're going to interface with this, at least for writing reports. In this case, what we're doing is actually I've got access to InterImage's BD deployment of this. So what I've done is I said, hey, I want to write a white paper on our channel partner, InterImage, and their ability to implement the product, the PXR platform from our company, PXR. Can you give me a little bit of an outline, and let's get started. So just like in Canvas, we can work in here and do some things. But what's important is we also happen to have access to all of the InterImage's BD material. So in a second, I'll show you just the JSON results. But what we did was send this highlighted content. We did a similarity search on that. and then we sent that to the LLM to write a paragraph out of it. So I'll do a couple of these. We're working through our white paper here, and we're filling it out with Leslie's company's specific writing and information. And hopefully it won't take too long. Also, I'll mention, oh, well, here, we'll do this one again, just for if there's technical people on the phone, but we can show the JSON results. So if we run this, these are the 4 chunks in this case from actual documents. We can see the location of the document and everything. This is what's being sent to the LLM. So this is almost like a kind of debugging mode, right? If you sort of want to see that, but anyway, so we'll send a bunch of these through. We'll basically fill out the questions of the RFI or whatever we're doing. In this case, we're writing a white paper, I think. And while this is running, I'll also mention CodePad, which we're building, basically like an IDE. It's not too dissimilar from GitHub Copilot. So you can interact with Chat 4.0 and 0.1 and even Claude 3.5 Sonnet right in VS Code, and it can update your code and stuff like that. Yeah, and the problem is that's great. That's wonderful. We have no control over understanding what our developers, how much they're using it. Is everybody allowed to access the same models? What if we don't care that there's a contractual agreement between OpenAI and us that they're going to, this is data protected. We want to keep our code local. We want to use a local model. We want to do everything on site. There's no ability for that. So yeah, we can go through and edit this whole thing, and then at the end, maybe do something like, hey, take all of this, make it flow, give me an introduction, and give me a conclusion, and wave the wand, and hopefully we're getting to that 80-90% solution in the cases. Obviously, an example I didn't show, which is more practical for how Leslie's team and our group uses this. A lot of times you're actually augmenting the data of like, oh, hey, I also want you to talk about this specific project we did here and this experience. So we could add that in and then highlight everything and get our beautiful white paper, So that's WorkPad. It's also kind of what CodePad looks like, except there we use integration service protocol. It's a very strange name, but essentially we can run code from the web browser and get successes or errors. So what this is in fact reducing is all that copy and paste. If you guys are users of ChatGPT, we need a button now on our mouse that's like automatic copy and paste. We're getting away from that and more everything staying in the same arena, and we're able to interact with different components as we need to, whether it's our historic data in a code setting. Maybe we have standards for how we're supposed to do comments, so we attach that as a document. We have our code running the way we want, and we say, hey, update the code with comments based on these standards. We can go nuts with different use cases.
Question. No questions?
Sure, I have a question. So it sounds like this is kind of it's kind of what I would envision for a governance platform, but you're going much beyond governance too, to enablement, right?
Yeah.
So, so I guess that's an observation. And then what's your vision going forward? How are you directing? Because a lot of what I've seen in new products are people have a use case in mind, but I don't know that anybody's really mapped out what the future of AI looks like. to the extent where somebody could be a product. I was
Well,
intrigued by maybe if
yeah.
you've done some of that.
And I think that we're going to see in organizations a growing engagement with Gen AI specifically, but it's going to be built into workflows, as I mentioned. And actually, agentic AI is another one of Gartner's top technology trends. So you heard Chris reference that we have built in here some agentic workflows to provide management in the platform. I think that in organizations, we're going to see more and more deployment of that. And it's going to create a level of chaos as they try and manage that range of tools and who can access what. So for us, we see the governance component as key, and we'll continue to look at ways to enhance what we're already doing on that governance side to bring more capabilities. Edge LLMs are a bit in the future, even though there's some out there still a bit in the future, but enabling that integration more effectively. But we've also very much designed this to be able to support plug and play, bring in other third-party AI agents and tools. So this becomes a way of controlling access to those as well. And so as a company, we will continue to build out other AI, common AI agents and tools, like WorkPad really is about document generation, complex, long document generation that you're just not going to get through a few queries, as well as CodePad. We'll continue to look at other use cases and build AI tools to supplement our platform to make it an even more robust product offering. But we do see those core AI governance capabilities is absolutely key in this environment where more and more stuff is going to be AI enabled. Chris, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a strain. Like, I don't know that we've seen where there's such a spectrum of understanding. I mean, normally you see that within industry or something, but then just kind of like globally, if we go on the street and we say, hey, who's used ChatGPT with Canvas? Like, there's not a lot of hands that are going to get raised. So this is like opposite of the field of dreams. If you build an AI governance model or platform, they will come. It's like most people don't even recognize how much AI will be infused. And this is like the personal computer, kind of revolution, where in 5 years, each of us is going to have multiple agents and baskets of tools, for the different roles we perform and even in our personal lives. And like Leslie said, each tool and each additional model we're using is only going to add layers of complexity. So we're trying to help, I guess, accelerate this adoption period by almost cherry picking the best tools out there and providing them alongside our platform, because that's when the organization, it's going to click for people, is like, oh, wow, once we see our teams using this, they recognize, oh, the platform's amazing. As opposed to, well, we're just trying to get ChatGPT going, use Teams account. And we would say, hey, get our platform, let's hook up the API call, and we can just watch and we can see how the adoption rates are going. Let's run a training and let's see how it goes post-training. Let's get you a local model. Let's experiment with what we might want to keep locally. So we're sort of holding people's hands through this process because it's an uneducated field, but that's going to change as we go through 2025 and further. So.
Great. Hey, Chris, I have a question for you. Do you feel like Lean is a competitor of yours?
And what was it? Lean?
Lean. They do the same thing. They put a wrapper kind of around whatever large language model you want to select. They've been growing in popularity for the last year. It's a tool that kind of does a little bit. You guys seem to be a little bit more detailed in back end. I haven't looked a lot into Glean, and so I don't know what rights and responsibilities and how they build in governance, but they do kind of the same thing. I just wondered if you had seen them and if they were a competitor. But you guys are doing some really cool stuff here. It looks great.
Actually, I think Glean has been spamming me with emails now that I'm seeing their logo. They want to sell me Gen AI. No, there are some competition out there. I mean, Scale AI is kind of the classic on the federal side. They have a platform very limited as far as what LLMs can come in. Ask Sage AI is probably the ones that are farthest along with the government. And I mean, they have Grok on there and stuff. Again, we can integrate with everything. We have Grok API, we can put it on. But they're focused simply on LLM flexibility. RAG isn't in the discussion. Agentic tools and workflows isn't in the discussion. So, you know, obviously we're a little bit biased, but I think we're thinking of what's coming down the pipeline and the true power of where we're going, as opposed to just giving everybody kind of lots of options and don't worry, you can access them all. Like the flexibility thing, I think, is what's coming out of most of those groups, and not really the future capabilities.
And there are, I don't know, some number of companies that in the cloud offer essentially an enterprise account of ChatGPT, right? And so you're accessing ChatGPT. What if you want to access other LLMs for other reasons? You're not going to get that. And you're not going to get the insight information from those essentially wrappers.
Yeah.
And a big item we haven't talked about yet is how we're charging for the software. So we're looking at a flat fee. Doesn't matter the number of users, doesn't matter the amount of usage, because the question about setting up the RAG tool was pretty indicative, right? What did I say? Like a couple days. We're hoping we're going to get an out of the box capability, but there's going to be a lot of services around this, and that's why InterImage and Pixel Rain are partnered together. They're our, you know, channel partner for service integration. But every other tool on the market right now, even though we're seeing some non-SaaS ones, some ones where you can deploy, it's usage and user base in a lot of cases. So if we're talking about big numbers on the public sector side or just large companies, that the money isn't going to, you know, this is like Oracle prices, you know, like 10 years ago. It's crazy. So,
yeah. Hey, Chris, I know you mentioned about your vector stores and you're using Cosmos DB, which obviously is a really good one for both structured and unstructured data. Did you look at any others and maybe elaborate on why you chose Cosmos?
Yeah, I mean, that was really keeping it in-house Microsoft. So yeah, Elastic, we started with, because we did a lot of stuff with Elastic. The problem there was your data basically got tripled. So if we were vectorizing 100 gigabytes, we turn it into 300 gigabytes, the original 100, and our embedded vector store, the embeddings in the vector store were about 200 gigabytes. I don't know why. So we immediately started looking at other solutions. Pinecone is cool, but it basically you can't have a local instance of it. You either need to use their services or it's offered through AWS. Milvus is open source, and we worked with that for a while. But when we were working on trying to deploy it and run security scans and stuff, it was just a little bit too janky, which sometimes you see with open source solutions. Cosmos actually modified an existing database, you know, the database Cosmos to be vector store. And again, a lot of our customers are Microsoft or AWS. With the AWS instance, we're doing an AWS vector store. So almost our approach, because of that flexibility, is going to the customer and saying, what do you normally use, and we can probably do that. One caveat that we're getting into is knowledge graphs and what's being referred to now as graph RAG. So we're spending time on Neo4j, and we might, the sort of base product might be like, oh, we need to set up a vector store. So, what's your preferred ecosystem, or do you have Elastic, or what do you got? We'll put it there. It might turn to, hey, if you really want to get the power out of some of these things, we need to put in Neo4j, or some sort of graph database. And this is another example of an evolution of where things are going that most people aren't looking at.
Very cool. Thank you. We're almost to the top of the hour. Are there any other final questions, Leslie or Chris?
I was hoping that we'd run out of questions and it would get really slow, because then I was going to change it to, hey, those of us that are really working on starting our own AI kind of thing, we could actually have more of a discussion on what it's been like just building your company, and those types of things, and because that would be very interesting as well. So if there's any questions as a parting thing on just how has it been trying to get traction, trying to figure out marketing and those types of things, I think that might be enlightening as well, because we're, for those of you that are owners and CIOs and the other things, I know you're already dealing with the same types of things that I'm sure that they're dealing with. But
Yeah, it is tough in spite of all the hype, and it seems like lots of enthusiasm. There's also confusion, lack of knowledge, and reluctance to dive in too quickly. So it does create for a very challenging market. And then, as we noted, there's lots of little solutions out there, and so I think that's creating some confusion about, all right, well, what do I really need to go forward, and making it difficult. So, we've been on a number of done a number of demos for different organizations, both government and private sector, and yeah, it is it's always slower than you want it to be. Right.
Well, I think there's a tipping point where it won't be anymore.
Yeah.
And I think you're maybe ahead of the curve a little bit with some of the things that you're fixing, where people haven't recognized the need for a lot of the government's pieces, which I know we have recognized internally, the lacking portions inside of existing tools. And of course, I have another meeting I have to jump to, and we're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for coming. And unfortunately, if anyone wants to stay longer.
And just remember, next Friday is our in-person event. It's going to be at Sean's office, a Solution Stream office in Lehigh, and you'll be receiving a flyer about that. So it's 3 to 5, a little bit later. So we hope you can join us and spend some time in person and chat more about this stuff. Thank you so much, Leslie.
Thank you. Appreciate the invitation.
And Chris too, as well.
Hey, Leslie, do you have an email address that I could email you directly?
Absolutely. That would be Steele, L, STEELE .L.
I'll put it in chat. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, keep going.
There you go. That's easier. Thank you, Chris. Chris can give you his email as well.
Perfect. This has been so awesome. I just want to say I have so many direct stories to this. When I was at my last company, I was looking at analytics and seeing the explosive growth of AI and the slowness of the adoption of policymaking from corporate group. And they're like, well, I don't know if we need to come out with a governance model. And I'm like, okay, this
yes,
is
you
last
do.
month, this is this month, and you just see all the various tools just exploding, by personal use. And yeah, so this is awesome. Anyway, thank you
Well,
so
thank
much for
you.
attending.
I appreciate it. All right. Have a good weekend.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. See you.